And today we have a very special guest, Nicola Yakich, and it is my privilege and honor to have Nicola with us tonight and to give her an introduction. Nicola is a degree qualified rehabilitation counselor and educator with over 6 years of experience supporting minority groups in gaining employment. Good results. Through empowering coaching practices. I'm sorry, okay, just 1 second. Pardon me. Through empowering coaching practices, Nicola ensures everyone that she works with is eventually capable, confident, and independent in the job seeking process. So these skills, alongside her inquisitive and dynamic demeanor, make Nicola a resume transforming and interview coaching dynamo. Nicola can turn the most basic interview into a competitive door opener and transform even an inexperienced job seeker into the interview genius. So everyone, let's welcome Nicola, and thank you very much for coming along and doing this presentation for us.
Thank you.
I'll hand over to you.
Sure, lovely. So it is absolutely my pleasure to be here tonight. And I guess I'd just like to say that, as in the introduction, my aim tonight is to educate you guys so that you do feel confident in creating your own resume and the best that it can be for you, because it's very subjective and it's very individual resumes. There's a few different types you can do, and everyone just has such different experience that we can really personalize it for each person. And I want you to learn how you do that for you, just with a bit of knowledge about the purposes of resumes and what to include. I think that we can do that tonight. So I would really love your questions. So please put them into the chat box anytime you like. And I believe I have lived overseas a few times in a few different countries. So I definitely know that resumes are different in each country, and I'll be focusing on Australia. So maybe for some of you it's different, but probably for a lot of you who have been here all your lives or not, it's going to be the same, but maybe hopefully a bit more updated and modern. And that's the point of tonight. So let's get started. So I'll be presenting us some slides, and there'll be a few opportunities for you to talk together. So, make that opportunity a good networking opportunity, a good time to get to know each other and really flesh out your knowledge a little bit. So let's see, I will just share the screen. Hopefully, yes, it's looking positive. Hooray, can you guys see that okay? Let me just minus that. Cool. All right, let's do it. So like I said, it's job seeking focused in Australia, and ones that work, because there's definitely ones that don't work. This is what we'll be covering tonight. We'll be looking at your current knowledge, because good education always builds on what we already know. Then we'll be looking at different types of resumes, some keywords, what to include, and also that will involve what not to include. Your introduction, which is quite important, your careers overview, your skills, the normal things you'll see, like you already know, I'm sure, work experience, education, but maybe something different, which is career gaps. Some people often experience that. Optional sections. Then we'll be looking at unsuccessful resumes and why people don't get hired from their resumes. And then we'll just be lastly looking at takeaways, and for sure your questions, hopefully you'll have many. Okay, so here we have it. This is a true or false question for you. I'm hoping to build on the knowledge that you already have. So with this, I would like you to either take a screenshot or take a photo, or I'm not sure how you can. When I've done this before, people have just taken a quick photo of it. the purpose is I want you to discuss these in a breakout room. So all I want you to talk about, whether you think they're true or false, if you can, talk about why. You won't have too long for it though, it's just 4 minutes. I just want you to have a quick discussion with the people in your group, just to talk about your knowledge of these things. So does anyone have any questions about these true or falses? Okay, so how was that? Did you guys get some true falsing? I hope so. I see some nods. That's great. Okay, awesome. So let's go through them. Number one has the purpose of getting you a job. Okay, what do you guys think? Does anyone, could I have one person from your group kind of unmute and say what you thought? That would be really helpful. Anyone? Volunteers?
Well, I think that's the end game, but I think it's more to do with you standing out, so you become a shortlisted applicant, right? Because until you have the interview, they're not going to really get to know you. So this is a piece of paper with some black and white writing on it, and so it just shortlists you. But the real part is the interview and bits after that. I could be wrong, but that's my thoughts.
Excellent answer. Yeah, brilliant. Does anyone else want to have a go, or are we happy with that one?
Yeah, I'll agree. We agreed on that. We said it was a stepping stone. It's more of a point to get you to the next step in the process. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Next step being interview. Yeah.
Correct.
Exactly. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so the resume just has the purpose of impressing the hirer. Yeah, and the hirer being the person who will put you into a yes pile or a no pile. And of course, the end game, like you said, perfect. That's exactly what the purpose is. If you can get invited to an interview, you are set. Yeah. So that's wonderful. Number two should not include a photo, age, address, referees, or marital status. Anyone want to answer what they think? If you don't, that's also fine. Kelly.
Well, I've never included a photo in any of my resumes. I've never included my age. I have included my address and my referees, but not marital status, because I think they're not required within the resume, and they could be deemed as discriminatory to have to put like marital status and age and those types of things in the resume. I don't know, but
That's right, yes. So this is very much an Australian version versus an overseas version, because in overseas resumes, a lot of places do put photographs.
Yeah.
And they do put other personal information, but in Australia, we really focus on only the things that will help us get an interview. And unfortunately, hirers are individuals who sometimes can be biased subconsciously or consciously. And because of that, we do not include photos unless you're going for a modeling job or something where it will be important what you look like. Maybe someone who's advertising using themselves, or so only very rarely do we. Age, never. Address. So address is something that's fairly new. Usually now we should include the suburb. So I'll go into that a bit more, but the whole actual address is not necessary. Referees is also something that's a bit new, but now it's considered a little bit of a breach of privacy for our referees, so we don't really include it. And things like marital status and visa status and that sort of thing, we also don't. because again of bias. Yeah, so number 3, should be similar to others. Look, I won't ask you guys because I'm sure that you guys know the answer to this, which is no. Yeah, you need to stand out. Resume and job seeking is a competition. So why would you want to be the same as other people? You need to be better than other people. And that is the point of having a great resume. So should not be similar to others. 4 has spelling mistakes, doesn't matter. Again, I think you guys will know this. The way that you write your resume says a lot about you as a person. If you have spelling mistakes, if you have punctuation mistakes, the employer is going to read that and think this person does not have attention to detail. This person cannot write a letter in English. How are they going to represent my company? So it is very important to check it, to double check it, get your friends to check it, get your teachers to check it, whatever. That is really important. Number 5, must include your high school. So yeah, I can see some people are shaking their heads. If you have education past high school, which could be a diploma, it could be a degree, it could be a master's, whatever. If you have high school education, just high school education, then you will need to include it. Maybe you are a high school leaver, so then you will include it. But if you have education past high school, you will not include that. 6 can be 4 pages, no problem. Oh, this one, I'm interested. What do people think about the length of a resume? Could anyone give me an idea?
Well, I don't know if people read beyond the first page or 2. So I don't know if there's any value add. The times I've recruited people, it's like I've got 100 resumes sitting there. I can't go through 4 pages for every one of the 100. It's like you just don't go there. If you don't capture me in the first piece, the rest is superfluous.
Yes. Oh, it's so exciting to have a hirer here. That's brilliant. Yes, exactly. Like the research says, on average, 10 seconds to make your decision in a yes or a no and to read on. So if you're going to have a 4-page resume, it had better be amazing. So generally it should be 1 page if you're a school leaver and don't have much education and history, work history, 2 pages for the average person, 3 or 4. I have done 3 or 4 page resumes, but they have been very highly experienced corporate people, operational officers, but you have to be careful with that. It's like you said, people do not have the time to read that. Great. 7, changes every time you send it out. I'm really hoping that you all said true. So you should all have 2, 3, 4 versions of your resume, and you should have it ready somewhere like Google Drive or somewhere in the cloud where I have personally my resume in an educator format, my resume in a coaching format, I have about 5 different formats of my resume, all different and all ready to send out at any time. And I think it is a really valuable thing for you to do.
I have a question about that.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. If I go for, say, for example, I'm a quantity surveyor, and I've only really worked in private quantity surveying firms. So if I do that, if I always go for those jobs, how do I vary those resumes?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I guess it will just depend for the job you're going for. So if you're going for the exact same position, so is it always just the same job title, same position?
Yep, same job title, same type of role. It's just with a different company usually. Sometimes a little bit of different projects and a little bit of different way of doing things, but mostly it's the same thing.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so in that case, you will probably not have these ones already made, but you'll have your main version that you will adjust for the keywords. Yeah, you will adjust for each particular job, but you won't have them ready made there for you. Like I have a few different positions, but you will have the same position that you will adjust each time. Yeah. Yep. But you should also still have it in the cloud so that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you have availability that you can just send it out with a few adjustments. Lovely.
Thanks.
And 8 is different to a CV. Okay, what is the difference between a CV and a resume? Anyone? Are they the same?
I thought CV and resume are the same because UK we use CV and America or Australia, I don't know, use resume. Or am I wrong?
Yeah, no, almost. It's really just that with your resume, it is just the formatting of what we use, what we're going to look at tonight. But the CV curriculum vitae is your resume plus other documents. So it could be certification, photocopies of certificates, could be written references, yeah, or it could be a copy of your degree, or so your CV is like a package of all your hireable documents, whereas the resume is just your 1 or 2, hopefully, page history of what you've done. Yeah. Okay, hope that's clear. Let's move on. Oh, yes.
Never said that. This is the first time of me hearing that. Thanks.
Good. Excellent. There you go. There's something new for someone. I'm very glad. Okay, cool. Next one is the types of resumes. So there are 3 different, I don't know how to move that. Here we go. Oh, I can put it down. There you go. There's 3 different types of resumes that we can use: chronological, functional, and combination resume. So the one that we're looking at tonight is chronological, and as far as I understand it, is the one that employers like the most. So that is the one that I use most often when I'm making resumes, and it's the one we'll be looking at tonight. Functional, we can use if people have gaps or if they're changing careers. So there are different ways to do it. I just wanted you to know that they do exist. Next. Oh, go. There you go. Okay. So here we are at the most important part of a resume, in my opinion, because this part involves research. So in every job advertisement, there will be special keywords. Keywords are what an employer require you to have for you to get this job, basically. If an employer wants you to have great communication skills and you do not include that in your resume, you're going to be in the no pile, basically. Also, recruiters use programs, IT programs, to scan a lot of resumes. Some recruiters, anyway, hiring if they're in a big company usually. So if you don't have these keywords in your resume, this program is just going to look through your resume and put you in the no pile without a person even looking at it. So it's really important. The other thing that's important about this part is that it involves research, because the way to make your resume stand out from others is to put the time in and research the position and to research the company that you're applying for. If you can really show that you have researched the company and you can personalize your resume to match the company, then you're going to be ahead of all those other people that haven't put the research in. So to do this, you need to, I'm looking at the how-to part right now, search the specific job ad you're applying for and search other jobs, more importantly. So again, this is research, research, research. If you're applying for a childcare job, for example, and you do not look at other resumes for childcare, or you do not look at jobs and the specific skills that they want, then you're going to be missing out. So you need to put these skills into your resume and in your cover letter and into your interview, and then you'll be much more successful. And another way to stand out is to quantify them. So if you can quantify them, for example, at the bottom, communicated daily with over 60 students and parents through specialized apps over the phone and in person. This can, people who hire really like to see how you did what you did. So if you can show with statistics and numbers what you did, it can be quite impressive. And again, in the competition of job seeking, you're winning. Fingers crossed. Okay. Next is what to include in your resume. And this will also be looking at what not to include. So we can see at the top, we've got our name. What I've got here is in the middle, just the subjects to include, and on the right, an example, just to help you out there. So the top is name and accreditation. So for example, if Anaconda is COO, then you can put that, or you could put that they are a dietitian, registered dietitian, or that sort of thing. If you think it would help you in the job search, then you can do that. Again, you always need to think back to what would an employer want to see. Then we've got email. Now, very important here. We all need to make sure that we have a professional email, because some people, I've got a few stories about that, but some people have emails that are not professional, and it's not going to help us in a job search. So please make sure your email is professional. Then we've got mobile number. You'll notice here that we don't have a home phone number. So a mobile phone number is perfectly enough, and that is fine. The next one, suburb. And again, you will notice that it's not the whole address. The whole address, it's not necessary. It could be a privacy issue. And basically, one thing that some hirers may have an issue with is if you live a long way away from the job. They'll be concerned that it might take you a long time to get to the job. You'll be unreliable. It is really helpful to show that you live nearby. The next one is certification. For example, in this example, I've got the working with children check. You can't work in that job without this. And so it's great to show that you have something like that. For your jobs, you might have another piece of qualification or certificate that you absolutely must have for the job, and you can put it here as well. And next is your LinkedIn. LinkedIn is becoming a really important way of getting work, and basically most jobs should have a LinkedIn profile for people to look at. There's a few that don't. Some tradies don't. If you're a school leaver, you don't. There's if you're a barista, there's some jobs that don't, but there's many jobs that really should have a presence in LinkedIn. So we've got the career overview, which we're going to look at. Then we've got the skills section. Then we've got the work experience section, including voluntary work. And that's where we'll also look at the work gaps. Then we've got the education section, and then we've got optional sections. So here an optional section is interests. Again, looking at what the employer would help them to find you hireable. Would the interests here, the resumes for a childcare person, interest in watercolor painting, volunteer firefighting, reading, this would all be really positive for that job. So again, looking about what the employer would like. One time in my work history, I did not include interests, and I got an interview, and in the interview, the hirer said, "You are the only person who did not include interests," and I found that really interesting. So sometimes, it's very individual what a hirer would like. Any questions here? Jolly good. I feel like I'm talking so much. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I've got one quick-
Oh, sorry.
sorry. I was just going to ask quickly, with the dates that you've got there, do we need to put months as well, or just years are okay?
Yeah, yep. So it depends on what it is, but I generally do put months. I believe it's what a hirer would like. We do have a hirer here, actually. We can ask the hirer. Anyone there? No?
Look, I guess when you have a series of resumes to review, it only becomes a problem when the time frames like if someone comes and they got jobs and they've been there for 5 years and 10 years, the months don't matter because there's big blocks of time. It shows continuity, it shows loyalty and everything else. When there's a spray of jobs going one after the other, and there's heaps of them, you go, well, how long were you really here for? Because that will give me an indication of your commitment to a particular business. So that will become important at that stage. But big blocks of time, I don't think the months are important. But from if there's lots of small jobs running one after the other, the months become interesting.
Excellent, thank you. And I guess it does show continuity, and also whether you've worked a few jobs at the same time. That also shows that you're a hard worker, and there are positives about putting the months. And yeah, big blocks, no. Thank you, Troy. That's wonderful. Any other questions?
So I have a question, Nicola. I've been working since I was 16, so I have a lot of work history. But what I wanted to know is, like, should I include everything that I've, like, all my work history, or should I just include like the work history that I think is relevant to the job that I'm applying for?
Yes, the latter.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I mean, if you think it is really going to help you get the job or get to an interview, if a job you did 10 years ago is really pertinent for the job you're applying for, then I might include it. I might not include the date, depending how far back it was, but I would write about the transferable skills and why it was important, so that the employer can clearly see why I've included it there. But generally, we do not include all the jobs. There's plenty of jobs that I leave off my resume.
And would you say just the jobs that you've had in the last 10 years? Like, I was in my previous position for 9 years. So would I just include, say, the last 2 jobs that I had?
Again, it depends whether you think it would be beneficial. Yeah, the one before that. It's hard to say because I'm not sure what it was, but generally research recommends to include 10 to 15 years and not more. Even 15 years is pushing it a bit.
Alrighty. Yeah, I read that as well. Like, I heard that there was something about not more than 10 years. So good to know. Thank you so much.
Sure, my pleasure. Okay, let's go on. So yeah, we have optional sections at the bottom. Like I was saying with the interest part, you can include certification, white cards, for example. All these things could be really important for the job, so for sure we need to include them. Achievements. Now, achievements, in my opinion, should be part of the work experience that we're writing about, but it could be a huge career achievement that you would like to include at the end as well. Professional memberships, if you have them, and they would, again, if the employer would see them as a positive. Voluntary work could be in your work experience, could be in your interests, but also could be just voluntary work, depending on what they are. Languages are a very good one to include if you have them. And if you do, you should be including the level that you have them at, and the different areas, writing, speaking, that sort of thing. Yeah, and hobbies and interests we spoke about. Okay, so the introduction.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yes.
Going back on that other one. A question on the achievements. If someone does a task-based role, so they're doing a very much report writing and measurement and whatever, it's all based on tasks and projects. None of it's about earning fees and increasing sales and that sort of thing, reducing customer waiting time and all of that stuff. It's very much that yeah, it's not about business operations at all. How do you do the achievements?
Yeah, okay. Again, I think I would always have to review the job that you're going for to see what they think is important and see how I can quantify it and how I can show that I've done really well in it in my past jobs. So task oriented, if it is completing paperwork, have you analyzed and have you improved the paperwork, or have you increased your time in completing that paperwork, or have you reduced the time for other people completing that paperwork? You'd need to really analyze what the employer wants, what you've done, and how well you've done it, or how you can talk about how well you've done it.
I've asked this question before of other recruiters, and they say, oh, you got to say how you have done those things. So if it's done cost planning on whatever it is, then, or done this this report, then, well, what's the benefit of that? That's all you can do.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and that's all you can do, and that's okay.
That is okay. That is okay.
So maybe that's all, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's right. There's a bazillion different jobs out there. So it's not going to be the same for everyone. Not everyone's working with customers. Not everyone's, working to KPIs. So it's very individual what you're going to be doing with your resume.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
No worries. Cool, moving on. Okay, so the introduction should have your name. I would just like to say something about the name. Today, I read another report on bias with people's names. So this is a very sad thing, but it is a real thing that having your name at the top of your resume, and if it is foreign, unfortunately, you might experience some kind of bias with that. So some people, for example, have two surnames. Some people have foreign sounding surnames. And unfortunately, again, what I was reading was saying that sometimes might be a problem. So it's completely up to the individual, and it's quite controversial, but your resume is not a legal document. So you can have any name you want up the top. So if you have 2-3 surnames, I would suggest maybe you choose just one of your surnames and put it at the top. If you have 2 first names, then perhaps just choose one of those first names and put it at the top. I'm sorry, I don't want to upset anyone, but this is just what research says. And if it's going to get you a job interview, then you can present yourself with your real name, then that's job done.
That's a good point, Nicola. It's sorry, it's Alex here.
Yep.
Because it's being Greek. My first name's Alexandros.
Yes, right.
Kankaris. It's like, most people can't pronounce it, and
yes,
in Australia we make everything shorter. So
yes, we do.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate that this exists, but it really does. Yeah, I have worked with many people from overseas, and I often do reduce their name or anglicize their name, and it's unfortunate, but if you would like to consider that is something you can do there.
Actually, I have a question, Nicola. So, for example, if I went to look for a job, let's say, because in the past when I have a very long last name, that's quite fine, where I came from. However, I found that even that was probably one of the hurdles for me getting through to the interview.
Yes, exactly.
Because that's people generally, when they see something unfamiliar or that looks difficult to pronounce, they just prefer not to go there or to leave it alone, that something that's uncertain. So would you say, can I, for example, could I shorten my last name to the first 4 letters, or put, for example, my first name, Anya, and then last name, just the letter L and full stop and period?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure about just putting the first letter. I would say probably not, because that will produce questions. But yes, you could do your first four names, sorry, four letters. Yeah, and I mean, it's your identity, right? It is absolutely who we are. It's our identity. So if you don't feel comfortable doing that, don't do it. But it is an option to overcome bias.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And I guess that's because I do believe in diversity and
Hopefully it's
equality. So I think it's, yes, very important for everyone to give a chance, you know, to get a job interview. To be assessed.
Hopefully this is not happening so much anymore. However, it also could be, as research suggests. But yeah.
No, thank you very much for your honesty. I'll mute myself again.
No worries. All good. So the last thing that I want to say about this is that it should be on the top of your first page, this kind of banner with your details on it. It should be in a header on your second page, just in case the pages become separated. I have it in a smaller form on my second page, so it doesn't take up much space, but my details should be there in case it becomes separated. And this heading should also be, like, just for consistency, on the cover letter as well. This is how I present my cover letter and each page of my resume, with this kind of introduction.
Nicola, sorry, it's Kelly. I just have a question regarding the font in resumes and also on cover letters.
Sure.
I think I read somewhere that it's good to try and use the same font that the actual company that you're applying to work for uses. Or is there like a standard font that you should be using for resumes, like, you know, a Times New Roman or an Arial or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there a preferred one?
No, it's, yeah, look, you shouldn't be using outlandish, crazy fonts, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I have seen more and more resumes now in color, for example, colored fonts. So that's also another thing to think about, to make yourself different from another one. And it's very interesting that using the same font as the company. I mean, it's all psychology, because if you're trying to connect with a person who's in front of you, they say it's a really wise idea to mimic what they are doing. If they are crossing their legs, you should cross your legs. If they're leaning in, you should lean in. And it's a similar kind of thing here. If they're using that font, that is acceptable to them as a professional font. And so, yeah, go for it. Yeah, it could be true there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Very good point. I think the fast rule here is don't use an outlandish font. But again, the hiring managers are diverse. You get all types of people. You just, you know, they might have a preference for one and not the other, but you just don't know. But I think that if you just don't go crazy, you're good.
You're good. Yeah. Thank you.
No worries.
Just on that as well, Nicola.
Yep.
I read a blog article one time, and they were saying, only use one font if you're submitting it and it's possibly going to go through an ATS, a scanning thing.
Yep.
Which most of them nowadays do. But then again, I've been told over here the resumes aren't enough in the volume to do that, so I don't need to worry. And now I don't know what to do. But
yes, well, that's everything right now, isn't it? There's so many different options, but I think it is a good idea to use one font because, yeah, computer programs are going to read it. We want it easy to read, and it's a really good point that the computer programs are going to use it. And so, you know, whether you put your resume into a final PDF or whether you use a Word to send out, again, is dependent on the company you're sending it to and what their preferences are and what will make it easier for a program to read. Yeah.
Can I jump in for a second?
Yes, please.
Okay, I think that's a really good question about the fonts. So for example, if I went to QBD and bought a book, and as I'm reading the book, I'm having all these different fonts, and there's bold and underline. It becomes confusing. It's like, it's too hard. So you think about most people who read books or text, they will see one or two different fonts, or maybe three generally. I think you want to make the font as easy readable as possible, so they go through the content. You don't want to have distractions, because you lose the focus on what the person's trying to say, because you're looking at the fonts and the highlights and everything else. So yeah, I think keeping the same font's a good thing, and you want it to be as readable as possible. You know, I don't want to be jumping around and all these different bits and pieces. Make it simple, make it clean. Let the value you bring to the business be the main thing. You know, I wouldn't be worrying too much about, you know, fancy fonts, as you said.
Yeah, very, very true. Yeah, and hirers don't have much time to read, so they want to just glance at the resume, get the information they want. They don't want to be fussing about pictures or what's happening over here in italics, or yeah, exactly. Thank you very much for that. We also need to think in that same kind of thing of the readability is also leaving enough white space, enough blank space, so that it's easy on the eye. We don't want to just have it packed with writing. We need to have a bit of a balance between the two. So perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so I was going to do a breakout, but we really just talked about that. So we are not going to do that. We can move on. Next is a career overview. So it's a summary of our awesomeness. So a lot of them have it up the top. It has different names, but when I do resumes, actually, I don't write career overview. I just have a paragraph there. But it should include your skills, strengths, and most importantly, why you're going to add value to the organization. You need to think again about the employer. Why should they invite you to an interview? Not because, oh, they're interesting, but because they see that you are going to add value to their company if they hire you. So that is what we need to do. How do we do that? So here I have two examples. We need to think of the skills. We need to think of quantities. Again, it could be hard for some positions. And we need to give relevant information that will make an employer read on. So I've got A and B here. Just have a quick read of this, and you can hopefully clearly see that one is better than the other. We've got in here skills, we've got in here how they did it, we've got quantities, we've got action verbs that are powerful, we've got hopefully everything that will make a person read on to our skills section, which is next. Again, the best way to write a good career overview is to research keywords that the employer is looking for and adjust our career overview to match it. If this company is looking for leadership and management above sales skill, then make sure your career overview reflects that. Even if you have amazing sales abilities, yeah, you really need to match this to the job. Does anyone have any questions there? No, good. Okay, next is your skills. So with our skills, again, this is from our keywords, a lot of it from our keyword search that we do in the beginning, our research that we do from many jobs and from the website of the company we're applying for. We're looking at soft skills, we're looking at hard skills. Research says that increasingly employers are looking for more soft skills because they see the value of these sorts of things. So it's really important that you do include them as well as your hard skills. A lot of people often include the hard skills, but not so much the soft skills. And if we can, we need to quantify them. Yeah, so here I've got, for the skills, an example of the job ad. We've got the job ad here that we are looking through it for the keywords, looking through it for the key things that this job requires. And then in our resume, we are writing it in a different way. We are quantifying it, hopefully. We are saying how we did it, but we are including them. Does anyone have any questions here? No, hopefully not. That's good. Okay, next is our work experience. Of course, you all know that should include work experience. It's important to remember that we do the most recent first in Australia. We put the one that we worked in first, and then we go next job after that. So make sure that is done. It makes it much easier for the employer to read. We also, I personally like to do the position first, because that is usually the most important thing that an employer can see, although the company is also sometimes important, and of course the time we do it. But I usually do the position first, and then the employer next to it, and the place that it was done. And underneath I put quantities and the how we did what we did, our achievements within those jobs. I think that's hopefully pretty understandable there. Any questions for that? No. No. Okay. Also, just notice that we're not using I. You know, we're using verbs that are active and interesting. We're using adverbs. We're using quantitative values here. Again, like we talked about before, we don't go back more than 10-ish years usually. Yeah, and it's not personal. It needs to be in a professional, formal manner. Okay. Next is, oh, hang on. I did want to just say one more thing about this. Work experience, which we will look at soon. Here we can include gaps. We can address gaps that we might have. And because it's work experience, it's not job roles, we can also include unpaid work. I would suggest that if you do that, you really need to write about the skills that you have done in that work to show that it really is valuable, because the money we receive is not the most important thing. It's the work we did, the value we added, the skills that we practiced, rather than getting paid in a job. So you can flesh this out with other activities. Okay, next is education. Again, I like to put the title that we did first rather than the place we did it, because that is the important part. Then the place we did it and the time it took, and also to say a little bit about it if it's useful. If it's not going to be useful, I wouldn't do it, but usually it is, using active verbs, again, not using I, talking about maybe if you did a special project that was pretty amazing, then I would include it in there. And again, not high school if you've studied afterwards. Here we go, career gaps. So this might not be applicable to you, but it is applicable to some people. So I just want you to think about this, that employers do like transparency. We can't try and pull the wool over people's eyes. It is, if you have taken time off from work, it's good to address it. The important thing is to not undervalue this time that you took off, because sure, you did something valuable. Well, not sure actually, probably you did something valuable in this time. If we think about parenting, caring, traveling, volunteering, studying, there must be some skills that you could put in your resume about this time off. So the next thing I would like you to do is to talk about what kind of transferable skills these could involve that you could put in your resume. If you took time off to parent or to care for someone who is sick or traveling, volunteering or studying, what kind of transferable skills do you think you could put in your resume? We'll just have a really quick talk about that.
great to have you back. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, exactly. So as Troy was just saying, you're always looking for something to make you better than the next person, basically, because employers receive so many resumes. A lot of people do not address career gaps because they're worried that an employer might see it badly. But if you do address it with transparency and show your transferable skills from that time, like Troy said, it can really put you ahead of the next person. And that's something that we always want to do. So I just thought that these could be some of the possible transferable skills during a gap that we could do. And if you look at a parent, for example, they're doing all of these. If you look at some carers, they're also doing a lot of these. It totally depends on what you did in your gap. And we could, maybe someone is a carer for a year and they also in the evening study something online. So it can also be something hard skilled like that, an actual certificate or something. So these are just some things that we can include. And the next slide, I've given an example of how we can include it. So here we have our childcare worker. I've given here, the first one is the latest job that they've got and they're still working there, but then we address the 1 year gap. So this person as a carer for a relative, it was full-time, meaning didn't have time for a part-time job that we could put in here. So responsible for empathically caring for elderly relative, honed numerous skills, including emotional intelligence, people management skills, patience, safe work practice knowledge, and communication skills. So I think all these skills are really quite marketable and will definitely put you ahead of any other people. As a carer, we all know that that can be a really hard job, and the skills that you're working on daily, they're huge. So to put them in here is quite powerful, I believe. Any questions with career gaps? Jolly good. Okay.
Yeah, just one thing quickly before we move on. So would you include that as a separate subheading, or would you put it in where your experience is and just sort of add it in chronologically?
I would do that. I would put it in my work experience and I would add it in chronologically where the gap is.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No worries. Okay, so I just thought we would quickly look at what some research is on unsuccessful resumes. First one, lack of strong communication skills, written and verbal. Almost every job requires strong communication skills, and also on different levels. So it's really important to put that into your resume and how you did it and to what level you did it. I think that's a really important one to put in your resume. Next one is lack of computer literacy skills. So again, very important for almost any job these days. People need to know that you are able to pick up a phone and use a specialized app if possible. If you're not, then try and become more educated in that area. But we need to include IT in our resume. Next one is poorly written CVs and applications which did not address the application selection criteria. So a lot of jobs, not all jobs, have application selection criteria. And if you do not address each single one, then you probably will not get invited to an interview. And again, the first two words, poorly written. So like we said before, the way it's written as well as what's in it says a lot about you. If you do not spend the time to write it well and get it looked at by someone to make sure that the spelling's correct, the grammar's correct, then it's going to say a lot about you. So make sure you do that well. Next one, lack of employability and reliability. Oh, hello? Troy? No? Okay. So this one is not so much about the resumes, but it's about the next step. If you have a great cover letter and resume and you are invited to an interview, maybe these days, they might want to do a telephone interview first, or you'll be judged on the way that you answer that phone once they call you straight away. So these sorts of things will be also really important in the job seeking process. So once you submit that resume, you need to think about the next step and how you're going to present yourself to be more employable. The locality of applicant and their proximity to work is something that was deemed as maybe hireable or not hireable. And that's because of the hours to commute to work and how late they'll be often and this sort of thing. So that's why we put the suburb at the top of the resume. The last one, not having Australian work rights. Applicants requiring sponsorship or having other visa restrictions, such as restrictions in work hours. So this is something that I would usually suggest that is good to address in the job interview should you get there. But if you do have work restrictions, then it would be deceitful if you didn't tell them. So you absolutely do need to tell them. Okay. So we're almost at the end. Just to remind you all that job seeking is a competition. You really have to be ahead of everyone else. There is a way to not be in a competition with job seeking. Does anyone know what this is, to not be in the competition? No, that's all right. So there's something called cold canvassing. And this is a really important way to get a job. They say that 80% of jobs are not actually advertised. It's the way I got my husband a job. It's by contacting potential employers without them advertising. If you're just answering job ads, then you're in a competition. You're competing with everyone else that answers job ads. But if you're contacting potential employers directly, there's no competition. It's just you getting ahead of the game. So I would highly recommend that you try this. If you want more information, I can help you with that, or you can try cold canvassing yourself. The next thing as a takeaway, remember to remove bias. So no photos, no age. Try to think about your name and how it presents, all of this sort of thing. The next one, a mediocre resume will not get you an interview, which is the point of our resume. So we really need to, in every step that we take with our resume, in everything we put in it and don't put in it, we need to think of what an employer needs to see, not what we think they would want, but what they really want. You know, I'm not putting in my resume, I want to work for this company because I think they can help me improve my communication. No, you have great communication and you're going to improve their business because of it. So you really need to get your head around promoting yourself as you are a sales person for yourself, is basically what your resume is. Perspective, again, create it from the readers, which is the employer's point of view. And last one, get it checked before you send it. Really important. Could be a friend, could be someone you work with currently, or whoever. It could even be a community service if you don't have either of those. And that is pretty much the end of my presentation. I think, yeah, I don't think there's too much for me to add, but it has been lovely. I'm sorry that it has been a lot of talking to you rather than with you. Yeah, so are there any questions?
Nicola, thank you very much for the presentation. We have a question from Gonzalo because he put it in his comments and I missed it when it was the right time probably to address it. I think the question on migrants using their full name in the resume really, struck the chord.
Yeah.
So, Gonzalo, would you like to ask your question yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for this session.
My pleasure.
Thank you, both of you. And yeah, my question was about the name. We talked a little about foreign names, resumes, and I just see my name sounds very foreign and very Spanish. My name is Gonzalo Sanchez. So I also have my middle name, which is Martin. And I was thinking, should I use my middle name, Martin, instead of Gonzalo, like most of my friends know me? But it's the first time I asked about this because not many people talk about this. But I think it's true, it's real that maybe some recruiters could be biased with the names. Or any suggestion for me? My full name is Gonzalo Martin Sanchez Palacios. But
I was going to say, with a Spanish name, I imagine you have more names than that. Yep.
yeah, yeah, I have 4 names.
Yes.
If you could maybe give me any suggestion or with this, I would really appreciate it.
Sure, definitely. So it really comes down to what you are comfortable with. As I said, the resume, it's not a legal document. So it's totally up to you what you write there. Bias is definitely real. Hopefully it's becoming less and less, and I'd like to give employers the benefit that this is happening less and less, and the importance of diversity is becoming more important. But from research, we're saying at the moment it is a real thing. So if you feel comfortable putting Martin there, that is something you could definitely do. I can't say whether to do it or not because this is your identity, but whatever you feel comfortable with, really.
All right, thank you so much, Nicola. Yeah, actually, I like when people call me Martin. I like my middle name, so I think I will consider it.
Okay.
And thank you a lot.
De nada.
Oh, gracias.
Thank you, Nicola. Yeah, that was a beautiful answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other?
Can I ask a question about what about when you are applying for a job and you feel that maybe you are overqualified for that? Because there's a whole issue around being overqualified, and people
certainly is. Yeah. Also in underqualified. So I haven't mentioned that. So thank you for the reminder, Troy. If you are underqualified, it's tempting to lie. I would highly recommend that you do not lie. Just to put that in there. Yeah, if you don't have the qualifications, don't say you do. Or if you don't have the experience, don't say you do, because if you're asked to an interview and you need to prove it, you'll be stuck. So that's the underqualified. Overqualified, absolutely right. I have definitely had some clients who have been overqualified and who have said to me that an employer said to them they're overqualified, so don't even bother to apply for the job. So there are things we can do in resumes to adjust it. And again, the resume is not a legal document, so we can leave out some skills that you have. We can leave out some experience that you've had. If you really want to, you can leave out some job experience, some jobs that you've had, if it makes you look too experienced.
Okay, so strategic omission, and I'm comfortable with that. That's good. Yeah. One last question, then I'll shut up. How do we get in contact with you? Because I think you have some real value to add. So.
Ooh. Thank you, Troy. That's a love. Can you see that slide?
Yes.
Fabulous. Yes. So there I am. Yeah. Thank you. It's been my pleasure. I really do have a passion for job seeking and helping people to job seek. So if there's anything I can do to help you, please get in touch with me. I have LinkedIn. Hopefully you do too. We can connect on there as well. I'll also be here next week for the cover letters. And yeah, I'd love to connect with you all in the future for sure.
Thank you so much,
Thank-
Nick. It was really
Thank
interesting.
you very much, Nicola. It was very comprehensive and insightful, and it was such a great presentation. It was a privilege and honor to have you here and to share this information with us, because you probably would agree with me that it's not that easy to come across what's required in resume or cover letter. There's a lot of information there, yet there's very little structured information.
Yeah, it can be. And with this sort of things, they get out of date very quickly and things change. So yeah, it is important to stay updated. I think, are there any more questions though? I don't know if I answered everyone's question.
I had a question there at the end there.
Yeah, sure.
If the job ad says, please submit your CV, and I got a resume, does that matter? And the other way around, if it asks for your resume and I got a CV, does that matter?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, as you might have found out tonight, a lot of people use the word interchangeably. So a lot of people do not really realize the difference. So I would find that a really great opportunity to make your first contact with the employer, which is should be part of your research that you do in the beginning anyway, because as you'll see next week, we need to personalize the cover letter. We need to get a name to personalize the cover letter. So if that's part of your ringing up and saying, would you like me to submit just my resume, or would you like me to submit my resume plus my certificates, then that's a great opportunity to ask them that and to get more information.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.